Hi, welcome to The Sacred We, the number one podcast on sacred relating where love becomes the legacy. Courtney and I work with conscious couples who are willing to do the work to liberate those unconscious limiting patterns so that they can experience a liberated love and pass that down to the children, inspire the couples around you, and show you a whole new level of love. In today's episode, we're going into how your relationship is your child's first love story, how your relationship affects your children. We're going to cover 3 key points today. 1 is your relationship becomes your child's nervous system. 2, your wounds become their blueprint. Number 3, how you treat your partner is how they treat themselves and future partners. This is such a big one. Because if we are asleep at the wheel, we are just treating the people around us the way we were treated growing up. This is imprinting. This is what just living life from an unconscious state creates. And we want to bring in the ingredients that we've been learning through years of our relationship, doing the deeper dives into all these places so that we can live or leave a legacy of love. And so we're going to describe, open the gates here with an example of how life has mirrored to us through raising our son, what can happen if we do let the patterns drive the bus.
There was a big period of time where Mike and I were having this experience and weren't aware that this is what's happening, okay? But we would have a rupture, right? We'd get into an argument, we'd have a rupture, we'd take space. At that point, I would often leave with Cedar, and Cedar and I would go on some sort of adventure. And, I was working on in myself this part that would want to take space for longer. So Mike and I would kind of hang out in that rupture-y tension for a while, for a day maybe, or 2 days or something. And what we started to notice and track is during that time when we'd be in this rupture energy, Cedar would have a really significant injury. He split his head open. He fell off my shoulder and cut his head open. He fell off this huge wall and we had to call an ambulance. The list goes on and on. We started to track and notice, wait a minute, when every time he's had a significant injury, it's been when you and I are in a rupture. And I even started to track just, that's when he would fall off his bike. That's when he would have some weird incident where he actually got hurt. What's wild about this is when these moments would happen, it wasn't like we were in active fighting, right? I mean, when he fell off the wall, I remember Cedar and I are at this local restaurant out on the patio in the mountains. We're enjoying each other. We're having fun. But there's this underlying tension in the field, right? Because Mike and I have had this conflict and we haven't repaired yet.
We were emotionally disconnected.
So really, in so many ways, everything's good. Boom, Cedar hurts himself. And normally our son is very coordinated and capable, right? But what we started to realize and dive into is interesting. He only gets hurt in these ways when there's an incoherence in the field. There's a disconnect between us. And boy, was that motivating. When we started to realize this, then, we'd be in a little rupture and maybe taking space for an hour. And during that time, I'd notice, Cedar fell off the back of the couch, whatever it is. Oh my goodness, I need to go repair with Mike right now before any more deep injuries happen. And it was so motivating for the part of myself that wanted to hang out in that place, that was in a bit of a well, whatever, we'll sort that out tomorrow. It just feels better to take space and, was kind of in a push away with you. Having this awareness of the direct impact motivated us so much to sort that out. And that hasn't been happening anymore. We've really, we'll go into ruptures for an hour maybe, or an hour or two, but not the long spaces. And what motivated that was these injuries that were happening for Cedar. And as we had this experience, this direct feedback, we started to realize in looking at other families and how many behaviors that children are doing or experiences that children are having are as a result of the coherency between the mother and father, and how most of us have not been taught how to track this or be aware of this or even be to know, oh, this is what this is connected to. And I kid you not, when Mike and I don't go into ruptures like that, Cedar has not had big injuries. And when we were in big ruptures like that, some sort of injury would happen. It was wild. But to me, as a somatic therapist, that makes a lot of sense, right? And also, if any of you know what constellations are, where we work with the morphogenic field, when Mike and I are in a rupture and we're not in a coherence, we're not in a connection state, there's now a freeze and a frozenness and an energy of rupture in the field. And our field, Mike and I's field, holds Cedar. It's the nest within which he is growing and developing. So now in those moments, he is in more of an incoherence. Something's incoherent. There's more of a tension pattern in the field. And then it's going to impact, and we watch this firsthand, how he's able to be coherent in himself. And so as we talk today, we invite you to be curious. What kind of maybe even subtle ways are your children impacted? And maybe they have personality qualities or things that you thought were just them that might actually be from your relational field and how that's impacting their nervous system.
Yeah, what's so interesting for me on this one is seeing what would play out with all the injuries, because every time there was an injury, we would immediately move through whatever crunch we had and would both really move towards him and scoop him up. And then often while holding him, like, oh, I'm so sorry about earlier. That was so silly. And we're all connected. And that's a pattern that's in my field, because when I was little, this is wild how much this will perpetuate through a field. When I was little, I didn't get enough physical touch or co-regulation. I was adopted twice, which means I had a lot of abandonment wounding. I needed lots of holding, and it wasn't available in the field. Big part of that, just this information wasn't as common. There wasn't the Sacred We podcast for parents to learn. So what I would do is I would go out in life to try to move through all of the disconnection in the field, and I would go do extreme sports, and the adrenaline felt better than the distress of the disconnection in the home, and I would get injured a lot. There's this thing, this joke that my dad, well, it wasn't a joke, this was true, is my dad would say to me, you're going to be grounded if we have to go to the hospital again. Because I would go to the hospital almost every month. They knew me by name there. And when I look back, after all these years of doing the work, a part of me was intuitively doing that because I needed co-regulation. I needed care. I needed someone to hold me and to touch my arms and to give me some sort of connection. And I'm sharing this because I think there's so many places I've watched this pattern play out with clients where they have this insight of, oh, I think I was sick all the time, or I think I got hurt all the time because I actually just needed connection. There's so much wisdom in our nervous systems and in our attachment that it will create a situation to bring connection back into the field because it's that deep of a biological need.
That's an important piece. Yeah. And then also things just going wrong and an incoherency coming in too when there's disconnect in a field, when there's not enough coherence, right?
It makes me think all of you listening, think of the moments where you've been really frustrated or triggered with your partner, and then you stub your toe or open a door and hit your face with the
or the days where you're like, oh, and now this, oh, and now this. It's like on top of, and it's like, yeah, because that's all connected.
Yeah, I think we can all relate to that, and then have that insight in the moment. Here's karma. It's because of the state. It's the anger. It's the ooh, them. And then life says, oh, yeah,
Well, and the thing that why we wanted to talk about this topic, right, is because there was literally nothing more motivating than for Mike and I in that place that was playing out than seeing the impact on our son.
And
Okay.
knowing it. Like that was the
Knowing
thing.
it.
I think if I go back into my 20s, if I had kids in my 20s or before all of this work that we've been doing over the years, I think I would have projected some sort of story that something was wrong with him.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
would,
it would have been easy. Oh, he's a boy. Oh, he's
oh,
adventurous. Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
and made some justification that it's has nothing to do with us, but it was impossible for both of us to not receive the message that this is because we are disconnected. I could watch it in him where he would get a little frantic and I'm like, oh no, he's not as solid as he normally is in his body. He's so capable. He's always like walking on edges and jumping over this thing. And only when we were disconnected would those things really be happening.
Oh man,
and it was just such an accurate report card that we couldn't turn away from it.
When I remember the moment that the ambulance, when we had to call you and tell you there was an ambulance coming for Cedar, and you walked up as I'm in the ambulance with him, and the look on our faces, and we were just, whoa, okay. Like digging so deep. This cannot happen. These immature parts in us that are hanging out in rupture too long, don't want to have to move through the uncomfortable thing. We have to sort this out. And what our prayer is in having this episode, and we want to say with so much love, all couples are impacting their children. This is just part of what we're all unwinding. So there's no shame. There's no, although a little healthy dose of shame is good. Mike and I felt shame, and that was motivating. Not we're bad parents, but like, we need to shift this. I feel shame. I feel shame that my immaturity has impacted my son in this way. And our prayer is that each of you really reflect and openly, and how can, as we name some of these things that we're going to go into, how can this be not a place of now I'm going to beat myself up? How can you use this as leverage, as motivation to motivate you in the places that you're collapsing or not dealing with something or avoiding? Because our love for our children and the future, that can be leverage to make ourselves make the changes that we're having a very hard time doing in our relationship.
Yeah, if we can take that radical self-responsibility and really consider what we're saying here, that our nervous system is impacting that field of resonance, that will shape and shift the behavior of your children. And if you start to notice those shifts in behavior and take ownership of, whoa, where are we? Are we really connected? Are we in this deep respect of each other? If we're not, and there's behaviors that seem really difficult and challenging, there's so much honor of just accepting, I think this is because we're disconnected. And then taking that mirror and reflection, that report card, and being willing to move towards support, whatever that is, if it's hard to get back into that feeling of connection. It's necessary for the kids to feel safe in their body.
I literally now, when I'm in that choice point moment of, I can choose to take more space from Mike, I can choose to push away, I can choose to end that choice point, or right now I could put down the swords and move towards and connect. When I'm in that choice point, all I have to think is, do I want Cedar to get seriously injured right now? Nope. And then just everything in me chooses, I need to go co-regulate with Mike. I need to go over and make eye contact, and I need to build this bridge because I don't want my son hanging out in that. I don't want him hanging out in that rupture energy. The sad part is, for whatever reason, I'm willing to let myself hang out in that rupture energy. But there's something about seeing it in my son that is like, I'm going to do something about this. And the thing that our first point here that we really want you to understand is that your relationship becomes your child's nervous system. So the level of coherency between you and your partner, the level of interconnectivity, the capacity for your shared relational space to move through challenges and stay connected, stay regulated, right? That becomes the child's capacity in their nervous system to stay connected to themselves, to feel how safe the world is, to feel, I can go through difficult things and everything can be okay, right? But when, as partners, as parents, we go into really big disconnects that we don't repair, or maybe even go into, maybe it's an ongoing culture of our relationship that we're not connecting deeply. Maybe there's been so many ruptures over time. Now we just live in a constant state of disconnect. All of that directly translate into our child's nervous system, even if the way we're relating with our child is different, right? So I might be going to my child and really meeting them in a different way that I'm able to meet my partner, but my child is going to still be shaped by that relational field between me and my partner. And we see this all the time in couples where, because often it's easier to meet our child in a different way, not for everybody, but for many, it can be easier. The role is clearer. Oh, I know how to go and repair with my child, or to scoop them up when they're feeling sad, or, I know it's important we stay connected. But then with their partner, there's more avoidance, or I don't want to have to do that, or I don't know how to do that. But to understand that is the nest within which your child's nervous system is developing.
Yeah, what you just shared there really brings me into the second point. How the wound can really become their blueprint. Makes me think of Cedar and how he's been this incredible mirror for me in the wounding that I'm here to overcome in this life. So, adopted twice, first year of my life. I've had a lot of stuff in relationship to women. It's been hard for me to stay in long-term partnership because I get triggered. My body remembers being severed from my mom day one, my biological grandma 14 months. That's two secure attachments being severed really quickly, way too quickly for my body to integrate it. Those experiences have stored information that has been tricky because I will unconsciously project out when I'm relating with my intimate partner. Oh, here's the emotionally unavailable, the woman. Here's the woman who doesn't care about my vulnerabilities, my experience. And so what's been tricky about this is that's my material. And I have, even though I've done so much work in my life and I don't want Cedar to have that blueprint, I have handed him that blueprint. Him coming from my DNA means he's got nigglies of that. And so when I think of earlier on in our relationship, when Cedar was first born, that mirror was so strong in my face because there has been a pattern for me where if we have a rupture, it's very easy for me to then move towards where connection's available, and then I'll connect with Cedar. I'm like, oh, Cedar, I love you, and I'm here, and I give him all the best fathering qualities that I wish I had growing up, and I give it to him, and there's some part of me that's just pushing you away, like, you hurt me.
Which is so painful for me. Oh,
of course.
And of course touches on, because what my parents' dynamic was, is they chose each other and pushed their children away. So they protected their love. They made their love more important and then pushed us out. And so it perfectly matches my templating.
Which is also so ironic because of my unevolved version of myself when we first had Cedar, when there was big need, or he really needed the reassurance and the kisses and all the touching your boobs and drinking milk and all. I'm like, I want those things. And then I would get triggered, and some part of me would want us to rally together of let's just us be really connected. And some part of me was wanting to push him away. And so it's super important to be aware of these patterns, these blueprints we hand down, because if I was just unconsciously living, I wouldn't see the mirror and reflection that's showing up in his expression, and I wouldn't know how to rewrite the story. So as an example, when Cedar has gone into experiences where he wants to push you away and just grab onto me, or push me away and grab onto you. That's been a humbling mirror of, oh, here's the blueprint I've handed down to this little guy. What would be the rewriting of this story to upgrade this blueprint, that it's pro connection and that it's tending the shared nervous system? And I've done so much work here to then notice where I'll unconsciously want to push you away, and I move towards as many times as I can. Sometimes I still,
like that.
sometimes I still push away, but I catch it, and I look at him, and then I let myself feel, Mike, if you let yourself just react here and do the thing that's the easiest, comfortable, familiar pattern, he's just going to know, he's going to receive the reaffirming of the blueprint that's in there. I can turn that switch off or on based off of how I show up. And it's been so motivating to know, if I don't move towards you and break that wounded blueprint in me and take the courageous act of move towards you, teach you how to love me, or somehow, or meet what it is that you're needing. If I don't do that, he's not going to get the physical sense and experience of, oh, this is what it looks like to move through those uncomfortable places. That goes back to, we're connected as a family. And what I've noticed is, the more that we do that, the more I own that wounded part. That's the message and the blueprint that he gets. And then he starts to mirror that back.
Well, it makes me think of today, the sweetness of us in the kitchen, and you were holding Cedar and he was kissing you and saying, I love you. And then I came in and was hugging both of you, and he was moving between touching noses with both of us and kissing both of us. And that was such a sweet moment of coherence, you know?
And such a rewriting of the unconscious blueprint, or the wounded blueprint, to the upgraded present day version, from all the places we've worked with that in each of us.
And I've had to work with that particular blueprint is, so it was normal for me that my parents would be connected and I wouldn't be connected with them. That was normal. So I can have a tendency where I just collapse and just allow it. So my work is to say, hey, Mike, I think it's really important that we get connected for Cedar. Hey, Mike, I think it's really important to reach, to assert, to advocate.
You've been so great at that.
Yeah. But that's my repatterning over and over, right? Because mine I used to have such a strong patterning of, oh yeah, I'm fine on my own. I don't need, I've lived this my whole life, and then nope, that is deeply going to impact Cedar. So another way that I just wanted to speak to, how I feel motivated for us and the way we're building Cedar's nervous system, right, is in this place of disagreement, where we have disagreements with each other, and how we want his nervous system to really have the imprinting of, when we disagree, when we have these moments of, tension or whatever. My blueprint used to be, have disagreement between us and then me pull away. And usually it would be with shame and a punishing energy. That's how my parents are, right? Then they pull away from each other, and they would do that with us too. But that they really do that with each other, and not staying connected. And for me, what was really motivating is, well, what do I want for Cedar in his nervous system and in his imprinting? I want it to be that when he encounters difficult moments, when he has, crunchy experiences, when things get uncomfortable, that he stays connected in the uncomfortableness with himself and also with other people, so that can be moved through. And that's very motivating for me in these moments where I have that impulse to want to disconnect. And instead it's staying with the experience together and realizing, Mike and I are having a crunchy moment. We're kind of being snippy a little bit. We're disagreeing about something, but let's stay connected in it. And Cedar's learning in that, how to stay in conflict, how to stay present. On our drive, we had a few of these moments of, we joke the ox and the tiger, because Mike's Chinese astrology is ox, mine's tiger. And so we can get in these moments, right, of being, of arguing about something or big disagreements. But there's this way we've gotten the hang of getting a bit fiery with each other, staying connected, breathing, laughing about it. Mike makes a joke, right, about, oh, the ox and the tiger. And then we're able to keep moving forward. And then I'm celebrating in myself, yay, that's the imprinting Cedar's getting. We can stay connected and actually cultivate the love even in these moments.
Yeah, what a good bridge into the third point. How we treat our partner is how.
I had one more point I wanted to make in this one. One more point. So this is so important for any of you. I want you to understand the way that the arguments or the fighting, that maybe the actual overt fighting, like maybe actual real fighting, right? Toxic fighting, what that creates in the future for your child being in that, because I think we can all agree, okay, it's not good. It's creating stress. But I also just wanted to really anchor in that what ends up happening is that if when our parents are connecting, there's lots of conflict and fighting and rupture, they will actually start to wire in love and connection is dangerous. Love and connection means conflict. Love and connection is scary. And so in the future, how that shows up is, right, and we watch this all the time in couples, right, where it's time to move towards each other and have connection. But instead of feeling the longing and the desire for connection, it's actually scary. It's actually, I don't want to connect because this has all gotten tangled up, right? Instead of when mom and dad come towards each other, there's love and connection and goodness that trickles down into our family. And then moments of disagreement or moments of, it becomes instead, as mom and dad move towards each other, I'm afraid, I'm scared. That actually feels really unsafe. And then in the future, that then translates into, as I move towards love and connection, that's unsafe. And so and we're sharing this because this is the motivation of what do we got to do to shift this pattern that's happening.
Yeah, not just accepting or projecting onto the blueprint that we see in our child. It's looking at it, being really curious about it. Whoa, where are they getting this? What did we hand down? Are we good with it? Or do we want to change this? Do we want to transform this into more connection, more respect, more moving towards each other, more prioritizing, hey, life slows down till we come back into the feeling of connection. Whoa, when someone gets hurt or sick, we slow down and what's the blueprint that you really want for your family?
Yeah. And so like Mike was saying, he was leading us into the third point. How you treat your partner is the way they treat them, is the way that your child will treat themselves and their future partners. And so, this is where we actually wanted to touch on here about co-parenting. And those of you that might be listening, I know I get questions about this all the time from beautiful parents that are concerned because they've ended up separating from their children's other parent, right? They're not necessarily in a loving, amicable place together. And yet, how do we hold that? How do we be with this? And this is what we want to touch on, because there is a way of how we can hold that is still respectful and caring and honoring. And also, there's definitely people who are both in relationship or not in the relationship anymore, where they don't hold the other parent with honor and respect and care. And what that ends up doing, right, is if I talk bad about my partner, if I blame my partner in front of my children, if I make them bad and wrong in some way, that child is now feeling a fragmentation in themselves. That's their beloved parent. That's half of them is of that parent. So yes, it's you feeling that feeling towards the other parent, but it's also translating into that child of, oh, my mom doesn't love that part in me. That part in me that is of my dad is not welcome here and is not loved. And it creates a lot of inner distress in the child around all of me isn't welcome and around where's the coherence, where's the belonging.
Yeah, the memory that comes up for me that really stood out of this place of how we treat our partners, how they treat themselves or future partners. I don't know which friend, but it wasn't directly from our relationship, but Cedar hung out with a friend, and a word that we almost never use in our family is the word stupid. And somebody had mentioned in front of him around them being stupid. And it just like hit me in the heart so deeply when Cedar and I were hanging out, we were doing something and he made a mistake or in what, not a mistake, but he wasn't able to do the thing that he wanted to do. And he said to himself, "Oh, I'm so stupid." Like, oh my goodness, my heart sank. What, buddy? What did you just say? "Oh, I didn't do this thing. I'm so stupid." I'm like, "Oh, where did you hear that? Oh my goodness." And it just really reflected to me all the places I unconsciously treat myself, how I speak to you. And I started to really scan and look at, whoa, where are all the little places? Sometimes there's words, sometimes it's nonverbal. And one insight that came up to me that week is you and Cedar had a rupture in something. He wasn't feeling met or attuned to, and he stormed upstairs and he slammed the door and he just wanted to be alone. Oh, that was so uncomfortable to look at because there's so many places, even if it isn't overtly like that, there's places where we would have a rupture and I would just storm off and want to take space and don't connect with me. And I was in the kitchen and I could hear him do this, stomp upstairs, do it. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is what I did as a kid. This is what I still do in moments in different ways. And wow, has it been motivating to not do that anymore, knowing that he will separate himself from connection if that's what I'm modeling. So instead of moving towards and having the uncomfortable conversation, repairing and co-regulating and acknowledging my part and you acknowledging your part, which we've gotten really, really good at. That's like the new value of our family. That is the default. Don't always do it perfect. But wow, all the moments we've watched him play out, the treating of his friends, others, us, or himself, watching that mirror in a way that is quite palpable when it's not leading to more connection. Like what a great mirror of how important this piece is, because I want to name it, because this was one that I'd say my dad lived out that may resonate with a lot of you. I've watched this more so in men than I've seen in women, but find your own orientation in it, where men will create hurt in a relationship and not really know how to repair it. So they'll go into shame and disconnect from the relationship, thinking they're saving themselves, saving their partner more hurt by just disconnecting those gnarly behaviors. And the sad thing is, it's actually just hurting the whole relational field, because ultimately it feels so much better to be connected. But there's a lot of men that pull back and then are now modeling to be stoic, to be disconnected, to be sitting really far back, to not be too invested, to not show too much vulnerability. And it's one I specifically wanted to name because it's a pattern that I see so often. And the story inside of a lot of men's heads really believe, oh no, I'm doing a service to my partner and to the family by doing that. It's just a coping strategy. But if we do it, we're just perpetuating disconnection.
And not only that, we're actually teaching that anybody in the family who has any of those qualities aren't allowed. Those qualities don't get loved. They're not a part of the whole. And then we're teaching our child, yeah, if I make a mistake, if I, have a bad day and I do something that I'm not, proud of, I need to hide that. I need to hide that instead of bringing it in, And one of the things I want to name here, though, too, is I think where this gets tricky, right? What about if your partner really is bringing in an ingredient that is not okay, right? And this is often where then me as the mom might start to make Mike bad, right? And make him bad. But there's a way to have a boundary with the behavior that isn't making the parent bad, that lets them still have honor and respect and be part of the whole. And I know Mike and I think we've done this well, which is where if either of us is doing something that, maybe I'm stressed and I say something too harshly to Cedar, that Mike comes in as like, Courtney, that's too harsh, and he holds a boundary, right? Or maybe Mike is feeling triggered by something and he's not able to come and connect with Cedar. And I can actually say to Cedar, hey, bud, Papa's stressed. He's feeling stuff. It's not about you. He got a little bit harsh there and that wasn't okay. And he loves you and he's going to take space and it's not about you and Papa will come back, And so this is the way, if you hear in there's a naming of what's not okay. And there's a naming of what we're having a boundary to at the same time of love and care and respect.
Yeah, that's the key piece there.
That's the key.
Respecting, sharing the respect for the other person and the humanness, because we all have our stuff. We all have shadows. We all get triggered. We all do things we're not proud of. And the importance there is respecting the other.
Mm-hmm.
There's been lots of places, you're in a deep process and you're not emotionally available, or you're crying because something's coming up. And I'll just come in and be like, hey, Cedar, yeah, mama's feeling a lot right now. And hey, I'm here. Papa's got you. And mama's got you. She's just feeling her feelings right now. And it's coming in and orienting and normalizing that in our family, we feel our feelings, and that the other parent comes in and helps hold the field and orient. Yep. Are you feeling scared? Yeah, it's scary. Hey, when mama goes and feels that deeply, just so you know, it's not about you. And again, just orienting, pro respect of like, oh, we love mama. Hey, do you want to go? And this is my favorite. If you're in one of those really vulnerable places, I'll then model the thing that would be the pro-relational thing, and saying, hey, why don't we give mama kisses? Hey, why don't we go snuggle up with her? Hey, do you want to rub mama's legs? And then we'll just come in and we'll co-regulate, not to fix, not to caretake, just to be in the care of. And then when we start to treat each other in that way, now we're modeling, whoa, this is how we treat each other in this family. And then now what we're sending, hopefully, if we do this well enough of the time, then, we send Cedar off into the world, and that will be the norm. It's like pro-relationship, respecting, not disconnecting, having the hard conversations.
Yeah. And so for those of you that are also, co-parenting, and maybe there are layers that there's not amicability, there's still a way to orient your child around certain boundaries or certain things, or that is happening but then still also affirming the bond, because here's the thing, you'll always be connected to that person because you had children together. So there needs to be an ongoing affirming of the bond you do have with the other parent, and how special it is that you are teammates in raising these children. And to whatever degree the other person is able to meet you, it's how do you keep affirming the bond? How do you keep holding that energy? Because that's the connection, right? It doesn't mean we're saying yes to all the behaviors. It doesn't mean that we're saying, whatever goes, because of course parents can cause harm in their relationship, through their relationship to their children, by not having enough boundary with each other and asserting the boundary, right? Enabling behaviors, or B, being too boundaried, too fierce. And now it's just, you're bad, you're not allowed, get away from us, right? And what we're looking for is this dance of staying connected with boundary, with respect and honor. Because at the end of the day, this is the person that created life with you. This is and in constellations, and I've actually been intentionally doing this with Mike lately. I don't know if you've noticed, Mike, but I'll actually look at him and say, thank you so much for making me a mama. And in constellations, that's the ongoing gratitude.
Feels so good whenever you say it.
Oh yeah, I was curious. Yeah. For me too, it helps me feel the gift that you've given me and that you keep giving me.
And the one that I love sharing with you is thank you so much for taking the role of mother so seriously and always tracking the relational space and the coherence that is leading to connection. That is such a gift to me, because if you didn't hold that role, that I believe is your biological blueprint, tracking that coherence, the connective space, I wouldn't get the mirrors and the reflections where I'm unconsciously choosing disconnection, where I'm avoiding, where I'm disconnecting, where I'm shaming, blaming. All the mirrors and the reflections were such a gift for me to do the work to grow those younger wounded parts of myself up, because I care so much about the blueprint I give our son.
So powerful. And also I feel that land deep in my cells. Thank you. Whew. Yeah, thank you. I'm also feeling that trickling out to all the women that need to hear that from the masculine, that sacred role. So what we want to leave you with, right? First of all, however you're tending that shared relational space does shape our children immensely. And we want that to be leverage for you of how can you yourself show up different, understanding that. Not as leverage to now blame your partner. Leverage, what can I do different? Maybe what conversations can I invite with my partner where I can take responsibility for my role and invite, how do we shift some of this?
Maybe it's tuning into this podcast episode together and just letting it spark conversation.
And so what we want to leave you with, this, how you tend the shared nervous system of your family is the love story your children will live. How you tend the shared nervous system of your family is the love story your children will live.
So the question you get to ask yourself is, what love story do you want to pass down?
Powerful. Chills. I'm getting chills.
Yeah, I just got chills too.
Woo, we're writing the future, folks. We are doing it.
You're all authors and you get to decide what book you're writing in the legacy of love. If you got value out of this, please do us a favor. Hit like, hit subscribe, hit the bell if you're on YouTube. If you're on the Audible platforms, give it a 5-star rating. Comment. We love reading your comments. We'll respond. We read them all. And thank you for showing up and doing your work so that you can create more safety in the world, in your home, and leave this legacy of love. Till next time.